The Dragon Killer. I'm kind of going on like a sad game marathon where I'd look at like internet forums and YouTube videos to see what the saddest games are according to the general population. So you can probably expect more reviews on sad games in the future. But by browsing the internet, I found out people were saying that there's this one little game which most people would consider to be the saddest of all time. This game is called That Dragon. Cancer. Just be aware that like this story is about a real family, like it's a real story that happened. So I don't want you to take this review as me shitting on the family, because it's not that at all. Like, condolences to the family being so powerless in such a horrible situation. Like, I couldn't even imagine having that happen to me. So honestly, condolences, but I still thought the game was shit. Now, people are probably going to think I'm a dick because I'm insulting a game like this, but honestly, like, just because it's a real story, I don't think it should be exempt from criticism. Like, there's World War II stories which have been adapted into movies and games, and those aren't exempt from criticism, so I don't know why this will be any different. I really wanted this game to be good. Everyone was saying it is the saddest game of all time, and my expectations were built up so high because all the gameplay I saw of it always had people crying in the top right corner. I'm looking at you, Jacksepticeye, but like, it was always really, really sad gameplay footage of people crying, and I was like, this game looks really good. And it just wasn't. I mean, I guess I kind of have to explain why I don't think it's very good, because I can't just throw out a wacky statement that everyone seems to disagree with and expect everyone to suddenly believe me. The game overall has very low production value, and that's not entirely its fault. The studio didn't have that many people. I mean, it was a Kickstarter game after all. But still, it looks like shit. The characters have no faces, the voice acting sucks, and 90% of the game is filler. This game only has 2 good scenes. Like, all of the gameplay I watched were either of these 2 scenes, and they are both really good. The scenes are the doctor's appointment, where the doctors tell them that their son has cancer and will most likely die, and the other scene is the dad trying to stop the boy from crying, but he can't because he's completely powerless in the situation. There's a reason these 2 scenes are the best and the most popular. It's because they're the only scenes in the entire game which tell the story of the family. Like, there's a little bit of dialogue sprinkled into every single one of the scenes, but these are the only scenes where it gives you a concrete structure on what's happening to the family and how they're feeling. Only 2 scenes in the game's like, how many chapters? Like 13 chapters? The rest of the game is all filler. All of it. Every scene, other than these 2, is just filler that has nothing to do with the family. The game is so metaphorical. Every single filler scene is trying to tell the story metaphorically, and it's like, you know, there's a better way to tell a story, right? And that's by telling it. And that's why the 2 best scenes in the entire game are the best scenes, because they happen to, you know, tell the fucking plot. So it's either you're a bird flying over the ocean, given no prompt where you're actually supposed to go, so you just wave your mouse around, clicking on fucking everything you see, or you're in an arcade game where you're fucking like John fighting a dragon. Like, who's John? Who's John? And yes, I know he's a real person, but the thing is, my complaint isn't the fact that he's in the game, it's the fact that he has nothing to do with the plot. If they just got rid of that scene, nothing would have changed. Alright, I think that's enough about the filler. Right, let's go into some of my other complaints. The game is extremely religious, like extremely religious. Every other sentence, they mention God. During the course of the game, you get given 3 notes that the mum wrote. During those notes, she mentions God 8 times. 8 times. One of them isn't even very long, and it still somehow manages to mention him. So it's like, over the course of those 2 notes, they mention it 7 times. That is just ridiculous. I honestly have no problem with them being religious. I myself are anti-religion. I disagree with the whole concept in general. I don't hate you if you're religious. In fact, I don't care if you are. It's just the fact that when you talk about God over your own son, who is terminally ill with cancer, and the game is all about him, where it's like, I don't care about God. I'm not religious. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear about your son. It's why I'm playing the game in the first place. I don't want to hear you talking about Jesus calming the storm when talking about your son who's about to fucking die. There's an entire chapter, you heard me right, chapter, set in a chapel where there's this keyboard in front of you, and every key on that keyboard plays a different sound, right? All of them are poorly voice acted, and none of them have anything to do with each other. You can't make a concrete story out of them. They're completely random, right? And then you press every key on the keyboard, and then you like turn on every single one of the 8 candles around the keyboard, and then the entire room goes dark, and it stays dark for about 10 minutes, and then it turns you around, makes you leave the chapel, and then the entire chapter ends. And it's like, you just wasted 10 minutes of my time. Honestly, this game is 2 hours long, but if you cut out the filler, it would only be about 15 minutes. There's this bit on the slide right at the beginning, right, where you see Joel on the slide. You turn to him and you're like, come on, Joel, and you tell him to go down the slide. He goes, no. You tell him to go down the slide. He goes, no. Very loudly, by the way. And then you tell him to do it again. He says no, and then no again. Then he goes yes, and he goes down the slide. Now it's your turn. You go down the slide, and now it's his turn again. And then he goes no, then he goes no, then he goes no, and then he goes yes, and he goes down the slide. And it's like, let me fucking past! The controls suck, and the game looks ugly as shit. For some strange reason, when you turn around where the game doesn't want you to look, your sensitivity goes so slow no matter what you set it to. So let's say I'm just taking a look around the room. Right, and then some dialogue happens and it wants me to look at the dialogue, right? It doesn't snap my head to the dialogue, it just slows down my sensitivity. So if I actually want to look at it, I have to move my mouse so much if I want to just look at it. And it's like, this all could have been solved had you just not added in that piece of code. And about the game looking like shit, the characters literally have no faces. This is bad for obvious reasons, but mainly because if you're trying to tell an emotional story, the main way to see what a character's thinking and how they're feeling in a situation is by their facial expressions. It's so much easier to draw empathy to a character if you see how they're feeling, but we can't see how they're feeling, we just have to listen to it, bearing in mind the voice acting is shit. So, quick wrap up on that Dragon Cancer. It doesn't work on an emotional level. It doesn't work on a storytelling level. The game looks like shit. 90% of it's filler. The controls are ass, it's boring, it's overly religious, and it's not fun to play. Apart from those 2 really good scenes, this game is not worth your time at all. Instead of pirating this game, I actually bought it straight up just because I thought the developers deserved it, and after playing the game, I can very safely say it's one of the worst games I've ever played. It took me about an hour and 45 minutes to complete, and that's definitely well within the Steam refund period. It's such a shame as well, because I really wanted this game to be good. Everyone it's saying is one of the saddest games of all time, and hearing what the family had to go through is just really heartbreaking. But it lost everything in direction. The game tries so hard to be abstract that everything is lost in the process. So I'm going to give my final rating on this game, and I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. I came to that decision because everything is shit apart from those 2 scenes, which makes it better than a 1. Which means, as of making this video, it is the lowest rated thing I've done. It's lower than Yasuke and lower than High Rise Invasion without Sniper Mask. Anyway, I'm glad you stuck around to the end because I was so disappointed in this game, honestly. Condolences to the family, but this game is shit. Also, quick word to the director. I wanted to hear the story of the family, not an abstract fucking Sunday mass. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this game. But anyway, if you want to play an abstract game about a family whose son gets cancer, which is also about 2 hours long, play Before Your Eyes instead of this game. It's a billion times better. But anyway, I'm gonna go now. Peace.